All right. We have video queued up for you here. The name of the video is called, hang on a second, America Shocker Driving. This video is brought to you by Here's the Deal. Please like, subscribe, and share. This video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes only. And tell them that Dirty Larry or Larry James 965 sent you to Here's the Deal. Here's the video. Thank you.
Video for a long time because the problem with our culture is that we are immersed in constant psychological operations and propaganda to the point where they've convinced us that there are certain things that we do that are not rights but are rather privileges, and traveling down the public roadways is one of those things. So I'm going to give you this information from some Supreme Court and lower court and higher court cases, but you have to do your own due diligence. This is not me giving you any kind of legal advice. This is just reading some of these court cases, and they could be majority opinion cases or minority opinion cases. They could be the cases that have won, and they could be dissenting opinions from the justices who were more apt to side with justice. But you have to ask yourself, is traveling down the roadways or traveling, just walking through life, something that is a right, or is it something that is a privilege? A right that nobody gives you and nobody can take away from you, or a privilege that's granted by a supreme power like government? I'm going to read a couple of these and then you make a determination on if this is something that you can apply to your life, and how will you apply it? Because there are some pretty powerful words here that side on the level of liberty and against tyranny. And of course, we know that when you're talking about the Supreme Court, they can say things that are inconsistent, they can say things that are contradictory, and they often do. And they can use words that are interchanged with other words, like is it driver or is it traveler? You'll see them in some of these cases, whether it's a dissenting opinion or it's the majority opinion, conflate the terms, even though Black's Law Dictionary lays out what actually the definitions for some of those words are. So this right here comes from Robertson versus Department of Public Works, and it says complete freedom of the highways is so old and well established a blessing that we have forgotten the days of the robber barons and toll roads, and yet the highways may be completely monopolized if, through lack of interest, the people submit. Then they may look to see the most sacred of their liberties taken from them one by more or less rapid encroachment. Basically, the bottom line is, don't grow lukewarm with regard to your rights. If you have them and you want to keep them, then you have to exercise them. You have to practice them. You have to put them into action in your life, or like a muscle that you never use, it's going to atrophy. But once you start applying resistance to it, and that's what you will meet with in this
Use
entire
them
rise here,
or
you
lose
will
them.
meet with resistance. Once you apply some resistance to it, then that muscle starts to grow. Once you exercise your rights and you act upon your rights, then you get more knowledgeable, you get less ignorant, and you become more powerful, because knowledge is power. And this next one right here comes from Virginia Supreme Court, Thompson versus Smith, and it says the right, not the privilege, the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon by horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile is not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will. In other words, they're putting the right to travel in an automobile down the public highways on the same plane as your right, all the rights that are listed in the First Amendment: RAPPS, religion, assembly, petition, press, speech. They're putting it, traveling, on the same level as that, on the same level as protecting yourself with the personal protection device as outlined in the Second Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. On the same level of, you have the right to be secure in your person's houses, papers, and effects in the Fourth Amendment. but a common right. It's a common right, not a privilege, which he has under his right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under this constitutional guarantee, one may therefore, under normal conditions, travel at his inclination along the public highways or in public places, and while conducting himself in an orderly and decent manner, neither interfering with nor disturbing another's rights. He will be protected not only in his person, but in his safe conduct. Protected. Oh, let's see. Whose job is it to protect and serve? Who constantly tries to convince us that that's what they're here for, is serving and protecting? And then who constantly fails us and demonstrates that it's not serving and protecting that they're doing, but it's harassing and collecting? Law enforcement. They're supposed to be protecting our safe conduct as we travel on the public highways, not interfering with us, and certainly not fining us. Also in Thompson versus Smith, it says the right of the citizen to travel upon the public highways. Notice it says the right to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business is a common right which he has under the right to enjoy life and property, to acquire and possess property, and to pursue happiness and safety. It includes the right, not the privilege. Obama was constantly saying, hey, driving is a privilege. That's why you need a license. That's why you need a permission slip from the government. Well, if it's a right, you don't need a permission slip from anybody to do something that you have the perfect right to do under natural law. It's insane. It's insane to think that you would need a license to breathe, or a license to practice your religion, or a license to speak freely, or a license to assemble, or a license to drive. That's the level, that's the plane that these justices are putting the right to travel on. In so doing, to use the ordinary and usual conveyances of the day and under existing modes of travel includes the right to drive a horse-drawn carriage. See, they're saying drive.
Switch to Chrome to stay in sync across devices, so your tabs go everywhere you go. Faster, safer,
a horse-drawn carriage or wagon thereon, or to operate an automobile thereon for the usual and ordinary purpose of life and business. That's Thompson versus Smith. In this case right here, it says the right of the citizen
welcome
to drive
to the room.
public
Hope you're
street
having
with
a wonderful
freedom
day.
from police
You're more than welcome to
interference.
join
Wouldn't
in
that
at
be a
any
beautiful day? Is a fundamental constitutional right. And this right here, this is Chicago Motor Coach. A lot of people are familiar with this case. The use of the highways for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common and fundamental right of which the public and the individual cannot be rightfully deprived. From Adams versus City of Pocatello, it says the right to operate a motor vehicle, an automobile, upon the public streets and highways is not a mere privilege. It is a right. I love that. It is a right of liberty, the enjoyment of which is protected by the guarantees of the federal and state constitutions. Now, whether these were ever overturned or not, the question is traveling in your own personal property down the public highways a right, or is it a privilege granted to you by the fiction called government? Government is that great fiction by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. I love this also from Chicago Motor Coach. This says it all. No state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, nor waterways, transporting his vehicles and personal property for either recreation or business, but by being subject only to local regulation, i.e., safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits. Everybody wants to do that. Everybody who's sane, who's rational, and who wants to care for other people and the space that they occupy in the public roadways with you. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to be cautious.
Yeah, everybody wants to be safe.
If one person's going to obey the traffic lights and some people
what
aren't, then it would be
hell
mayhem.
over.
And then there's discretion there. What if you got off of work at 2:30 in the morning and there's nobody around in sight? Why would you have to travel? I mean, why would you have to stop at that stop sign or that street light that gets stuck on red for 5 minutes while nobody else is driving on the highways? Why can't you exercise your discretion and go, look, I looked left, right, left again. There's nobody around. I'm going to go through this. And then the cop comes and pulls you over. What There was no violation of anybody's safety or anybody's freedom on the public highways when you went through that stoplight or that stop sign safely at 2:30 in the morning. And then they say travel is not a privilege requiring licensing, vehicle registration, or forced insurances. You can't even get any more clear than that. In Wingfield versus Fielder, the court makes it clear that a license relates to qualifications to engage in profession, business, trade, or calling. Thus, when merely traveling without compensation or profit, and that's the key. That's the difference between traveling and driving. A driver is doing it for compensation. A traveler is doing it for his own personal business.
I hope
Outside of
everybody's
business,
having a
enterprise, or
great
adventure,
day.
with
Everybody's
the corporate
welcome to the
state,
chat. Everybody's
no
welcome
license is
to up on the
required of
panel.
the
If your
natural
points of
individual
view,
traveling
your
for
thoughts,
personal business, pleasure,
your
and
agreements, your
transportation. That's
disagreements,
Wingfield versus Fielder.
they're all
And this
welcome.
right here from Barbarian versus Lucier, the use of the automobile as a necessary adjunct to the earning of a livelihood in modern life requires us, in the interest of realism, to conclude that the right to use an automobile on the public highways partakes of the nature of a liberty within the meaning of the constitutional guarantees. They're basically saying, hey, this might as well just be in the Constitution. That's how we view it. This is a natural, fundamental, unalienable right. And I'll just read one more. People versus Horton. The right of the citizen to drive. See, they use this interchangeably, driving and traveling on the public street with freedom from police interference unless he is engaged in suspicious conduct associated in some manner with criminality, is a fundamental constitutional right which must be protected by the courts. I will leave the link to everything that I just read here, and there's even more. I just didn't want to make this video super long, but I'll leave the link to all of these cases in the description below. Check them out. Do your own due diligence. This isn't me telling you what you should or shouldn't do. This is just interesting stuff that kind of testifies to the fact that taking your property, your personal property in the public highways and byways and waterways is a right, according to the courts, and not a privilege. If you guys enjoy these videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my private email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. And if you like this video, maybe you'll like some of my others. I have some incredible playlists that you want to check out. And, you let me know in the comment section below if it's something that's valuable to you, and I'll keep on doing them. I appreciate you. And remember, freedom is not free. It has a price, and that's eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Freedom is paramount, and freedom is dangerous. The only thing more dangerous is not having it.
We have another video queued up here. This one is a little more along the lines of the title of this stream. This video is brought to you by Redacted. Please like, subscribe, and share. To Redacted, this video is used for entertainment, educational, and fair use. Thank you.
Is the U.S. government a child trafficker middleman? This would make them a pimp. You may recall that we had the discussion recently about whether or not the word pimp is allowed. Is that a woke word, or has it been replaced by something that makes it sound fun and good and acceptable? I'm going to use the word pimp until someone tells me not to. That is what one government whistleblower says. Tara Lee Rodas, a Health and Human Service whistleblower, gave her opinion statement on the child migrant crisis to the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. It is horrific. We are going to play you the video, and she doesn't get too graphic, so we feel comfortable letting you see it, and also just bringing this to your attention. This is from a hearing in the Senate called the Biden Border Crisis: Exploitation of Unaccompanied Alien Children. We're still using alien, so I guess I can still use pimp. The purpose was to examine the surge of unaccompanied children, and we call this UAC. So if I say that again, you know what I mean. Now, according to the Customs and Border Protection statistics, the number of UACs who arrive at the border has swelled from 33,000 in 2020 to more than 146,000 in fiscal year 2021 and 152,000 in 2022.
Jeez.
So, I mean, that is a big jump in numbers. So far in fiscal year 2023, we have seen more than 70,000, and we're not even halfway through the year. Here are some statistics from the last 10 years to just show where they're coming from. Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and then others. So most of them from Central and South America.
And by the way, most of them countries that we, the United States, have destabilized.
Yes. Now, this is an incomplete chart because it stops in 2017, but just look how it kind of steadily continues to rise. And then look at the increase in this chart from just unaccompanied minors alone since 2020. There seemed to be a bit of a dip right after the pandemic. That's probably because no one was counting, or we didn't know what the heck. People were staying home. And then just through the roof. Again, according to Customs and Border Protection statistics, the number that arrived just keeps going. And now the Biden administration is being accused of not even knowing where 85,000 children are right now. They just don't know. So let's let this whistleblower, she was a volunteer. She just thought, hey, you know, I see on the news there's this migrant crisis. I'm going to help come and process these children. She had this beautiful dream that she'd be taking these beautiful children and matching them with families who wanted children. That's not how it worked out for her. We're going to let it play. She has 5 minutes, so you know that's how long it takes, but we may interrupt a time or two. So buckle up because this is a sad story.
Today, children will work overnight shifts at slaughterhouses, factories, restaurants to pay their debts to smugglers and traffickers. Today, children will be sold for sex. Today, children will call a hotline to report they are being abused, neglected, and trafficked. And we don't know if they're going to get the help they need. For nearly a decade, unaccompanied children have been suffering in the shadows. And I have to confess, I knew nothing about their suffering until 2021, when I volunteered to help the Biden administration with the crisis at the southern border. As part of Operation Artemis, I was deployed to the
Don't
Pomona
forget,
Fairplex
it's all
Emergency
about
Intake
everyone's
Site in
safety.
California to help HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, reunite children with sponsors in the United States. I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home country, smuggling to the US border, and ends when ORR delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion.
No way.
Now, whether it's intentional or not, it could be argued that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale,
Oh, come
multi-billion-dollar
on.
child trafficking
Are you
operation
making money
that
off
is
of
run by
kids?
bad
No
actors
way.
seeking to profit off of the lives of children. As for me, my interest is the safety of the children. I do not view this as a political issue. I view this as a humanitarian issue. I assure you, my motives are the highest and best. I want the children protected. So I want to tell you some of what I witnessed personally at the Pomona Fairplex. I saw vulnerable indigenous children from Guatemala who speak Mayan dialects and cannot speak Spanish. That means they cannot ask for help in English. They cannot ask for help in Spanish. They become captives of their sponsors. I have
Morning
sat
and
with
welcome
case
to the
managers
room.
as they've cried to tell me the horror of what has happened to children as they make the journey to this country. I saw apartment buildings where 20, 30, and 40 unaccompanied minors have been released. I saw sponsors trying to simultaneously sponsor children from multiple ORR sites at one time. I saw sponsors using multiple addresses to obtain sponsorships of children. And I saw numerous cases of children in debt bondage, and the child knew they had to stay with the sponsor until the debt was paid. Realizing that we were not offering the children the American dream, but instead putting them in modern-day slavery with wicked overlords, was a terrible revelation. A terrible revelation. These children are a captive victim population with no access to law enforcement or knowledge of their rights. They are extorted, abused, neglected, and that is why I blew the whistle in 2021. I witnessed firsthand the horrors of child trafficking and exploitation. My life will never be the same after what I saw.
All right. So she now goes on to say that she has hope and she thinks that there can be certain policy changes, such as don't move so fast when a child comes in and like just try and process them out, kind of like a, UPS package. She talks about transparency. She talks about, vetting sponsors better, because she says here that some children come in and sponsors are applying at various services to get children, almost like you go to the pound and you're like, I'll get some from that one. I'll get some from that one. I'll get some from that one, like commodities. Now, about this 85,000 missing children number, U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra said that he doesn't know anything about these 85,000 children. He basically shrugged it off when he was asked about it recently. Watch.
I'd like to know what you're doing to find the children and what you're doing to make certain that these children are not being trafficked.
Senator, first, those statistics that you've mentioned, as I said previously, in regards to another question by one of your colleagues, those are unfamiliar to me. I have no idea where those statistics come from, if they're based in reality or not. And we do everything we can to make sure any child, before we allow them to be released to a sponsor, that sponsor has been vetted.
Okay.
The vast majority of these children end up with a family member, immediate family member, as a placement. So some of those statistics that are being thrown out there that don't seem to be based in fact really would go contrary to what actually we've done.
It's a total lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
According to what the whistleblower says, yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Well, and also, yeah, I mean, they're not being placed with relatives. So they don't know who often they're just dropped there. They don't have any connection. They don't
Right.
have a family member. They don't know.
And like she says, it's not like they're speaking English or Spanish. They're speaking a Mayan dialect, and nobody speaks it to know, like,
Yeah.
where'd you come from? Where are your parents? Who can we contact? So they can't even ask for help or say who their families are, if they have any in the United States. So yes, I mean, it does seem like the crisis was a lot more fun to talk about when we could blame it on President Trump. That's how the media feels, at least. But now that the Biden administration is responsible, it has become worse. Now, there are a few like lingering questions I still have about this testimony. And she says child trafficking has exploded. Obviously, it's really hard to get statistics about that, because if you're trafficking a child, you don't report it. You don't tell them where you're taking the child.
What?
These children can just disappear.
We're
They
not going to
poof
tell on
off
her?
of the
Wait
grid.
a minute.
And then the piece, she said that the United States is responsible for recruitment in home country. So what does that mean? Like, what is the U.S. government's role
Yeah.
in recruiting from these home countries? Well, we showed you the main countries, which were Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico. I have major questions that I was not today, at least, able to find those answers. So I welcome your tips and clues, and if I can, follow a thread. But now it seems like this is getting big enough that even the New York Times is not able to ignore it as a fun thing to throw at Trump. They are saying that as migrant children were put to work, the U.S. ignored warnings. So there are clear signs that more than just this whistleblower knows this. More people know this. It's not something that, Secretary Becerra can just sort of say, like he literally shrugged like 8 times. Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's that, sometimes you lose some
I haven't
paperwork.
seen those numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a lot more serious than all of that. And this is just, for us, it's something that opens more questions than answers, but it deserves our attention. So let us know what you think of this story in the chat below.
Thank you so much for
Welcome to
watching
the
this segment here
broadcast.
at
You're
Redacted.
more
We are
than
live
welcome
every day
to
at 4 p.m.
interject
Eastern
at any
time, trying to
time.
share the stories that the mainstream
We're
media
gonna
will
keep the
not
flow
cover. You
rolling
should also
here
come over
about
and
Biden
join our community of Redacted Rebels
and our
over at
wonderful government.
redacted.inc.
Thank
That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content.
All right. The title of this video is Biden could be impeached and the evidence is growing. Senator Cruz. And this video is brought to you by Fox News. Please like, subscribe, and share. This video is used for entertainment, educational, and fair use. Thank you.
It's Texas Senator Ted Cruz is with us. Senator, great to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Sean, great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. Senator, do you want to weigh in at all? I know you're, Alan Dershowitz says you were one of his best students. Do you want to weigh in at all on these allegations? I mean, I look at this letter from Grassley and Comer, and they're saying that they believe the DOJ and the FBI possess an unclassified FD 1023 that describes an alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for a policy decision. That would be a high crime and misdemeanor, wouldn't it, Senator?
It absolutely would. In fact, it doesn't have to be a high crime or misdemeanor because the Constitution specifies that impeachment lies for treason, bribery, or other high crimes or misdemeanors. Bribery is explicitly noted in the Constitution. And I got to say, the evidence, not only against Hunter Biden, but the evidence against Joe Biden being complicit and profiting from this corruption is growing and growing and growing. Every week on my podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz, I've walked listeners through the detailed evidence that's growing. And here's the tell. Look, I think the Biden Department of Justice is going to end up indicting Hunter. But if they indict him just for the gun crime or just for a tax crime, they're going to try to explain it as he's a troubled soul. He's got substance abuse issues. But
Well,
look how
of
fair
course.
we are. And now we can go target Donald Trump, which is what the Biden Department of Justice really wants to do. That will be the tell. If they focus on individual crimes to Hunter and they seal off what makes this a matter of public concern, which is the connection to Joe Biden, the millions Hunter made selling access to daddy when he was vice president. He made it from Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company. He made it from communist China, 10% for the big guy. And Merrick Garland, Biden's attorney general, does not want to.
All right, I got to do this real quick, because I don't know when you're going to be leaving here, so I got something special for you. This is for when you leave the stream. Just for you, bud, at this moment in time. Remember the saying, don't let that door hit you in the ass. No doubt about it. Back to our video from Redacted, no doubt about it.
Get near the growing and growing evidence of corruption going straight to the president of the United States.
Senator, we're near the end of Title 42. We see what's happening in El Paso, in Texas, in your home state. How bad is it going to get? And by the way, our thoughts and prayers for the families, 5 families murdered in cold blood, including an 8-year-old kid. Thank God we got that guy last night.
Well, look, it is horrific. The crisis at our southern border is the worst in history. We've had over 6 million people cross illegally under Joe Biden. This is deliberate. It is their intended effect. And next week, they're going to lift Title 42, which means the numbers will go up. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Senate Democrats, they want 6 million to become 10 million, to become 12 million, to become 15 million. And they don't care about the body bags that are piling up. You noted the horror that played out in Cleveland, Texas. This monster murdered 5 people in cold blood, shot an 8-year-old child. He was an illegal alien. He'd been deported 4 times. And yet, under the Biden open borders policies, he was allowed to stay. ICE didn't find him. They didn't deport him. They didn't send him away. The Democrats blocked Kate's Law, which I wrote, which would lock up aggravated felons. If this monster had been in jail, 5 people would still be alive. That 8-year-old child would still be alive. And yet none of the Democrats want to change course. They want more of the same, more death and suffering and chaos.
How does the president get away with aiding and abetting in the law breaking? Because that's exactly what he's doing.
Well, it's
no way. Come on.
Lies about it. He sends out Karine Jean-Pierre, who says illegal immigration has decreased 90% under this administration. That's a flat out lie. Number 2, the corporate media is utterly corrupt, so they don't cover it. That's why what you do, Sean, is so important, shining a light on the humanitarian catastrophe playing out right now on our southern border.
And does everyone agree we need Ted Cruz reelected? Senator, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
You heard it here first, people. You won't get it anywhere. Nowhere but there. Ha 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 ha. All right, we got another video queued up here. This one's a little off topic of the title, but it's an interesting video, I believe. We'll see. The title of the video is He's Exposing the Truth About January 6th, and They Are Not Happy by Redacted. Please like, share, and subscribe to Redacted. This video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes only. Thank you.
So they paraded me through my apartment building, took me downstairs, put me in a black car, and they took me to jail. And I ended up spending 2.5 days in jail in 23-hour-a-day lockdown in a concrete cell with a metal door. And I truly believed that I was never going to see the outside of a jail cell again.
Welcome to Redacted Conversations. I'm Clayton Morris. On this show, we focus on stories that are kept from you, stories the mainstream media, the deep state, permanent government want hidden from you. One of those stories is what really happened on January 6th, 2021 at the nation's capital. Could just about everything you've been told about January 6th be wrong? Perhaps. Brandon Straka was there that day. He had his life turned upside down after the events of January 6th. He's from Walk Away. He was there that day to give a speech. He's here now to share a story you've probably never heard before on that day. Brandon, welcome back to Redacted.
Thanks for having me.
So you were there that day. You were invited to give a speech there. And I'm just going to give you the floor. I want people to approach this interview, just come with an open mind. We've all seen the television coverage of it. We've seen the theatrics in Washington on Capitol Hill for the hearings and all of that. Just I want everyone to sort of step back from all of that. and walk into this with a clear head and just listen to your story. Can you just set the stage for us and how it came to be that you found yourself at the Capitol on January 6th?
Sure. I really appreciate your setup too, because that's what my experience was like. I think it's very easy for people to sit at home, watch things on TV, especially imagery over and over again of something that, people breaking windows or something that looks really violent. And then after that, start kind of judging and condemning other people who were there without any understanding that the majority of people who were there didn't see any of that and that was not our experience. And so, yeah, I was scheduled to be a speaker at a permitted event that was at the Capitol after President Trump spoke at the Ellipse. And the reason why I was asked to speak is, number one, I'm the founder of something called the Walkaway Movement that I started years ago, kind of a political and social movement to encourage people to walk away from the political left, as I did. And through that, I started to gain some notoriety, I guess, in political circles on the right. And after the election in November of 2020, I started doing rallies around the country, encouraging people in swing states like Michigan, New Jersey, Georgia, and then actually I did a few events in Washington, D.C., basically just encouraging people to keep their spirits up, keep their passion alive, because a lot of people felt like there was something amiss about the 2020 election, and a lot of people wanted a forensic audit of the vote to try to understand what legitimately was the outcome of the election. And I really want to set that too, because there's also in my opinion, the left-wing media really took the reins of the January 6th story and just ran with it and ran in a certain direction. And now there are, I think, even people in this country who believe that the purpose of January 6th was for a mob to storm the Capitol and by force install Donald Trump as the president, or remove Joe Biden's presidency. And that was never, ever anyone's position or intention. All anybody wanted on January 6th was for Congress to delay 10 days before certifying the votes, and to throw it back to the states to do a forensic audit so that people could feel 100% certain that the results of the election that we were being told were the final outcome were in fact accurate. And so I got asked to speak on January 6th at this event, and I was always under the understanding that President Trump was going to speak at the Ellipse, that there would be a march from the Ellipse to the Capitol, and that there would be a permitted event on a stage at the Capitol. I didn't exactly know the details, but I wasn't concerned about it because I've done so many rallies and events, especially outdoor events. Outdoor events are very, very, very fluid. They're very different than indoor events. If you do an indoor event and someone says the event starts at 7 and you're speaking at 8, that's usually exactly what happens. If somebody says it's a rally, we're starting around 3 o'clock, you're going to be up at 4:30. It may not start until 5, and you may not get on until 5:30. I mean, that's just what happens. And sometimes, we were supposed to set up the stage over here, but it ended up being over here. Totally normal. So I didn't have specific instructions about where the stage was, but my thought was I'll walk to the Capitol, and when I get there, I'll see the stage, and then I'll know where to go.
Right.
So I was on my way to the Capitol after President Trump spoke. I had hired security with me, and I have to listen to them because it's their job, 1, to keep me on time, and 2, to keep me safe. And I really, really love doing marches. I love being with people. I love that energy. But they said, you can't. They said, there's way too many people here. You'll never get there, and you'll be super late, So they said, you have to take the metro, the DC Metro. So we got underground. We got on the metro. We were on our way to the Capitol. And while we were on the metro, we were very close to the stop. And suddenly I began getting text messages saying from friends and family and colleagues around the country who were watching on television. And they were saying, we're hearing on the news that people are going inside the building. And I thought, that sounds interesting. And the first thought that I had in my mind was the numerous times that left-wing protesters have gone into government buildings during different protests or events like the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, or others. There have actually been other situations in our fairly recent history where left-wing protesters have occupied the Capitol building.
Yeah,
have gone
hallways.
inside,
Yeah, hallways and to occupied whole
sat on the
hallways.
floor.
Exactly.
Yeah, done sit-ins, refused to leave. I thought it was something like that. And I also thought that it wasn't very many people, because I have gone to so many right-wing rallies. As I said, I mean, it's hard to get conservatives to even show up. It's hard to get conservatives to come out, hold a sign. I mean, conservatives are very much these people that like, oh, I like to spend my weekends with my grandkids or in my garden or, whatever. They don't like to do this stuff. So I'm like, now suddenly they're like going inside the building. I was just like, so I thought that we were talking about maybe 12 people. I thought we were talking about like 10 people went inside or 12 people went inside. And that made sense to me, because the news makes a big deal out of everything when it pertains to conservatives or Trump supporters. So if it was 7 or 8 or 10 people who went inside, of course they're going to break into programming for Trump supporters went inside the Capitol. Anyway, so I was kind of several minds about this. I thought either this is nothing, and if it is nothing, then I want to capture it so that I can show everyone, the news is lying to you again. This is like nothing is happening. Or it's something. And if it's something, I want to capture that too. So I got off the DC Metro, and it was about an 18-minute walk to the Capitol. So I began walking to the Capitol with my security. And when I got about 3 blocks away, I started shooting a video. I wanted to start shooting like plenty in advance, because you can always edit a video down and just put the moments out there. But I wanted to make sure, if in fact anything interesting is happening, I want to capture it. So I started shooting, I'd say about 3 blocks away from the Capitol. I was approaching from the east side. Now, this is another point that I want people to understand. Most people who think that they really have seen what happened on January 6th and they know what happened on January 6th, I can almost guarantee you that you've been looking at either pictures or videos of the west side of the Capitol. The west side of the Capitol, which some people also refer to as the inaugural side of the Capitol, or the National Mall facing side of the Capitol. Those are the images and the videos that people have seen of people scaling walls, breaking windows, struggling with police officers, of flashbangs going off and smoke in the air and things like that. That wasn't happening on the east side of the building, the opposite side of the building. So I'm approaching the east side grounds, shooting my video. And as I'm getting there, what I'm noticing is that it's very, very calm. Everything is very calm. And there's people scattered everywhere, all over the lawn. So there's people in groups of 5, 10, 12, standing in circles, smoking cigarettes, talking. In my video, you see a woman casually pushing her baby in a baby stroller. Somebody goes riding by on a bicycle, and I'm just walking along. And as I'm getting closer and closer to the Capitol, I'm on a very, very large sidewalk. I mean, like literally so large that you could drive traffic on it. And at the end of that sidewalk and very close to the Capitol, there's bike rack, which is fully opened and pushed out. So I assume now that at one time that was a barricade, but it was not a barricade when I arrived, because that sidewalk was completely open and it was pushed out. And there were literally 0 police officers on the east side. Like, I don't mean 5, I don't mean 10, I mean 0. There was not 1 police officer on the east side grounds, and the barricades were open. And people were scattered everywhere. And but as you could see by looking toward the Capitol, that there were thousands of people outside of the east side of the Capitol, on the steps and just off of the steps. Now, another point that I would like to make is, so I'm now at this point up to the steps of the Capitol. All of those people that I just mentioned, they're not turned facing the Capitol. They're not trying to get into the Capitol. They're not aggressively charging the Capitol. They're all facing away from the Capitol, holding their signs. There's a woman with a karaoke machine singing a song. People are singing the Star Spangled Banner, chanting, facing away from the Capitol, holding signs. However, in my video, because this is all one long continuous video that I'm taking, at the top of these stairs, there's a man, and he's motioning like this to the people below, and he's shouting, "They've opened the doors. They're letting us in. We're going inside. We're going inside." So I heard him say that. So I walked to the top of the stairs.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Were you able to tell what kind of person this was? Was this a police officer, security, or just a random person? Were you able to see from that far away?
I was only probably 5 feet away, 7 feet away from him, something like that. And I would imagine, I mean, I still believe he was a Trump supporter. Well, I don't believe he was a police officer, and I don't believe he worked for the government or worked in the Capitol. He was dressed like any of the other protesters. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I mean, who or what he was, I don't know, but he was dressed like a protester. And my impression at the time was that he was a protester who was telling anyone around, "They've opened the doors. Like we're going in. We're going in." And so I went to the top of the stairs, and when I got to the top of the stairs, again, this is in my video. So everything that I'm telling you right now is verifiable by watching my video. No one has to take my word for anything. When I got to the top of the stairs, sure enough, the doors were open. So we're talking about 2 large metal double doors, both wide open. Now, these are the Columbus doors of the Capitol. Some people may have heard about this, but I'll go ahead and tell your audience right now. So the Columbus doors are 2 20,000-pound metal doors, which are securely locked. It has been stated that you would have an easier time breaking into a bank vault than breaking into the Columbus doors, because they're sealed by a magnetic lock. And that magnetic lock can only be deactivated by some sort of code or somebody who knows the code to open that. So we still, after a 2-year-long January 6th committee investigation and unlimited resources by the FBI and the DOJ to investigate January 6th, we still don't know who opened the Columbus doors on the east side of the Capitol. But somebody did. Somebody learned how to open those doors.
You would think it would
open.
Is it key card activated, or you'd have to, you mentioned punching a code in. So clearly someone with access to punch in this code to open those doors, verifiable by an electronic system, right?
So here's what I believe that we know. And I want to just say believe, because I've seen this video footage and I've read details about it, but I can't sit here before you today and verify that this is absolutely true. But we have seen video of somebody push the doors open. Now, after the lock has been demagnetized, deactivated. So the person who opens the doors in the video looks up and is communicating with somebody else right before it happens. So all we can really do, I think, at this point is speculate who was that person communicating with, and did the person who they were communicating with give instructions as to, now the door is ready to be opened, or here's how to open the door. I don't know, but there seemed to be some communication happening between these two people, and then the doors are opened.
Right.
And so when I arrived, the doors were already opened, pushed like this. Now, I've talked to a number of J6ers who ended up going inside the Capitol from the east side through those very doors. And what has been reported to me by all of them is that when those doors opened, there was a surge from the crowd. And that if you were standing anywhere in that vicinity, you didn't really have a choice. You were going in because the crowd pushed forward and pushed inside. You know, I've talked to a number of people who said that they were standing at the top of the steps, and that it was just like a wave when those doors opened, that they almost got like
stampede, like a stampede
of sorts. Yeah.
Right.
So when I got there, the doors were open. I'm filming my video, and there were several hundred people standing on the east side. Now, the majority of them were just standing there shooting a video, like me. Some of them were trying to make their way inside, but there was a large amount of people in a small space, so there was sort of a bobble.
No, what is he saying? They broke those doors down.
it's hard
Nobody
to describe the
opened those
situation
doors.
accurately.
How dare
because on
they
the one
say
hand, I
that?
wouldn't sit here and say,
Why would they
oh,
do
it was
that?
totally calm and people were
Damn
twiddling their
people.
thumbs and whatever. But I can say I would never in a million years classify the atmosphere as a riot, as violent. I mean, it was a bunch of emotionally charged people who, some of them wanted to get inside those open doors, but it was kind of like this, so it was kind of like a come on, come on kind of thing. And I'm standing there filming this atmosphere, and I stood there for 8 minutes. I never went inside the Capitol on January 6th. So I just want to make that really, really clear. Never entered the building. I would estimate that I didn't get within 35 feet of going inside the building on that day. And after 8 minutes, a man came out of the building. He got on a bullhorn and he said, they've cleared Congress. Everyone left the building. Move out, move out. And at that moment, I immediately turned around, continued filming, and I left. I walked back down the stairs out to the outer grounds, and then I shot 13 more videos where I basically did street interviews with people. Why were you here? What did you see? And some of them were really dark. I mean, there was a moment where several men were very, very agitated and shouting, they shot a woman, they shot a woman, they just shot and killed a woman. And so I interviewed those guys. I actually have really incredible footage from January 6th that I've never released, and I probably never will, because I'm too afraid to get other people in trouble. I don't want to reveal the identities of anybody at this point, but there's some really incredible stuff that I captured in the moment while it was happening. But anyway,
when you say, can I just have you clarify that? And not that we're going to show the video because it's yours, but that these people would get in trouble. Is that based on your experience? You were 35 feet away, and then of course we'll get to what happened to you in just a few moments here. But because they were doing something that could be argued as illegal, or because you see this massive dragnet where they've just rounded up anyone who happened?
Well, when I started this video, I didn't realize it was an hour and a half long. We're going to go to another video here. It's only 6 minutes long, and we'll probably come back to the other one. This video is titled Whistleblower Bombshell. This is the biggest development of the Hunter Biden laptop story. This video is brought to you by Fox Business. Please like, subscribe, and share. This video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes only. Thank you.
This possible criminal activity took place, and I can't verify whether or not it's really criminal activity, but I do have faith in the whistleblowers that bring it to me that this document exists.
That was Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley yesterday on the bomb.
Now, wait a minute. He brought him a document, but yet he's positive that the document exists. Huh. Let me think about that for a minute.
Bombshell whistleblower claim that then Vice President Joe Biden took money personally from a foreign national in exchange for a policy decision about America. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer sent a subpoena to FBI Director Christopher Wray yesterday, demanding that he testify on this allegation that the Bureau possesses an unclassified internal document which proves that Joe Biden did this. The White House is responding this way, saying, for going on 5 years now, Republicans in Congress have been lobbying unfounded, unproven, politically motivated attacks against the president and his family without offering evidence for their claims. Joining me now is South Carolina Congressman, member of the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees, He's also the GOP freshman class president, Russell Fry. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. You hear the White House's response. Now, we do have bank records, which, of course, James Comer has discussed and that you or he and his colleagues have looked at. What can you tell us about this whistleblower report?
I think it's a bombshell. This is really big stuff. I mean, up to this point, this is the first time that we have a direct link alleging or showing that Biden may have had direct influence here. And so, before we've had suspicious activity reports related to his family. We've had the Hunter Biden laptop that there are references made, but nothing directly tying really strongly. And here we have really a bombshell whistleblower coming out alleging that there is a document that shows that there is an elaborate scheme but with a foreign national. I think it's of grave concern to all Americans, and that's why the chairman and Senator Grassley are asking Director Wray to produce the document.
Well, which country is this referring to? Is this taking money from China or Ukraine or somewhere else?
Well, we don't know at this point. So the whistleblower has come forward. He has made these allegations and said that there is a document purported to show a financial scheme of bribery and influence peddling of then Vice President Biden. And so that's why the production of that document by the DOJ, by the FBI is so critical to really understanding what this whistleblower is talking about. So certainly more to come, but it's really, to me, this is probably one of the biggest developments that we've seen so far. And the Hunter Biden laptop story was massive and really kind of uncovered a lot of this stuff. But now we have a whistleblower with knowledge of the inside who has come forward and said, hey, you need to look at this particular document. It exists. And so we have asked for that document.
Well, what if they don't hand over the document? The FBI and the DOJ have been stonewalling you and your colleagues now for years. They'll do it again.
Well, we've had that problem. Obviously, subpoenas work, and so we were going to use our authority. Oversight is a big check to any executive, and it is, it's our constitutional duty to provide that oversight of the executive. So we're going to issue those subpoenas. We're going to get to the bottom of this. The American people expect nothing less. And so we're going to go where we can, and we're going to let the facts dictate our next moves.
Well, meanwhile, the White House is refusing to comment on a report that prosecutors are close to deciding on whether to charge Hunter Biden. The first son has been under federal investigation since 2018, reportedly under probe for 2 misdemeanor tax filing charges, a felony tax evasion charge, and a false statement charge over a gun purchase, Congressman. We're looking at an indictment potential because of tax filing charges. This is not about foreign influence peddling.
No, on
is
that
the timing
front,
coincidence? Yeah.
Well, I think it's important. In many ways, this is a very tangled web. The senator, now President Biden, has been involved in politics for a very long time, and you're seeing this tangled web. It's hard to imagine the scale of it. And in many ways, we're kind of at the tip of the iceberg, but you see all these things that are taking place with the suspicious activity reports related to his family, these charges now potentially impending, and now we have the release of this whistleblower statement related to this document. It just all paints a very dim picture about what is truly going on. And so for the Biden family, the walls seem to be closing in.
Well, the State Department is responding to the former CIA official who told House investigators that Anthony Blinken orchestrated the intelligence letter discrediting Hunter Biden. Anthony Blinken says he doesn't do politics. It wasn't him who did the letter. But of course, Mike Morrell testified that, in fact, his phone call to Mike Morrell triggered this whole activity of getting 51 intelligence officials to sign on a letter that the Biden laptop was disinformation.
Right. And this is a classic example of how this administration continues to stonewall and gaslight the American people. It's remarkable.
No way. They wouldn't do that. How could these people say this
very clearly that Blinken was the person that was the impetus of this letter. And of course, they're continuing to stonewall. I know a senator has said that the secretary may have perjured himself based on those comments and what he has already testified to Congress about. So more to come on that, but it's certainly alarming that the secretary deflects and demurs, but doesn't engage in the actual question.
Congressman, real quick before you go, if you get that document that indicates and implicates Joe Biden in this influence peddling, where he took money personally and then made a policy decision, will you move to impeach the president?
I think that's a very strong possibility. I think it would alarm a lot of Americans if that is indeed the case. And so we need to see what's in the document, what it shows, what we might need to grab additionally. But I think that's certainly on the table.
Congressman, thank you. We'll be watching all of that. Russell Fry joining us this morning
Thank you.
On really a whistleblower bombshell.
What's your problem, man? What's your problem, man?
All right, we got one more video queued up here. This one's called McCanney. This Hunter Biden revelation cannot be written off, by Fox News. Please like, subscribe, and share to Fox News. This video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes only. Thank you.
To take everything that the Hill says at face value. There has been a clear track record of, in many instances, of transcripts being intentionally taken out of context, being intentionally misrepresented. And so we don't know what exactly the intent or what's going on here. But as I said, we've seen the inquiry and we will review it appropriately.
So that's Vedant Patel of the State Department. He's a State Department spokesperson responding to, I believe, the request for, which is going to be a subpoena eventually, I think, for the Secretary of State to come in and try to explain himself when he said there was no interaction between Hunter Biden and the Secretary Blinken when he was Deputy Secretary. He said, no, there was no interaction. That's how it was part of his confirmation, according to Ron Johnson. Obviously, the emails revealed there was a lot of interaction. In fact, I would leap to the fact that I believe that he gets along better with Hunter than he does Joe. Kelly McEnany here, co-host of Outnumbered, gets set to do that show. Her book is now out, Serenity in the Storm, Living Through the Chaos by Leaning on Christ. Kaylee, welcome. Your response to some of the inaccuracies, clearly, you saw the emails. It's not even up for conjecture or debate.
It's not. And one of the things that I was so struck by was you have Blinken who says, Mike Morell's testimony confirms everything I'm saying. And that was with regard to, him not being a part of the 51 foreign intel folks who said that this was Russian disinformation, the laptop. But Mike Morell's testimony said he was integral to it. So the testimony completely contradicts Blinken. And then with regard to the emails, you're exactly right. There's emails from Hunter Biden to the wife of Blinken saying, hey, what's Blinken's private email? And then there were multiple email correspondences. That's what we know of. So there is more here. And this cannot be written off as just nothing to see here, because there are facts, hard facts that contradict the platitudes coming from the State Department.
And what you're referring to is Benjamin Hall asked the question, Anthony Blinken, about Mike Morell saying that you were the one behind who helped round up the 51 intel experts that called the laptop Russian disinformation. He goes, no, that's not what his testimony is.
Right.
So you got to turn around and go, yes, it is. And then Mike Morell, I've not seen him. He doesn't have a CBS contract anymore. But Mike Morell was all over the Libya situation. He was the disinformation there about the attacks. So he has respect in the Bush world.
Mm-hmm.
He used to brief George W. Bush in the most perilous times after the 9/11 attacks. And then he stayed and briefed Obama. So he's been on our show. I like having him on, but it is a complex situation that he's weaving. And when asked about it, he said, well, I wanted to see Joe Biden win. Really? You put your reputation on the line to make sure Joe Biden, and by the way, he didn't get a job out of it.
right? All 51 of these guys. I mean, they were essentially Biden surrogates. And you expect that among maybe media personalities or political appointees who've worked in the West Wing who are political in nature. But you don't expect that, to your point, among credible intel officials who have respect across both sides of the aisle. So it's really astonishing when you look back, and all 51, to your point, signed up despite the reputational damage that would come, the facts that would come out later. They just signed their name to support a Joe Biden presidency.
Instead of really looking into it, and you would think CIA guys like Leon Panetta, 70-something years old,
Yeah.
all you have to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, Joe, is this your son's laptop? Because I'm about to sign off on this. I'll just stay out of it.
Right.
But don't let me ruin my reputation. I was chief of staff, CIA director, secretary of defense. I mean, come on. I'll help. I want you to win, but I can't do that. Like Dan Hoffman said, why would I sign this? I don't know anything about
Exactly.
it. Walked away from it.
Exactly. And this laptop, I mean, it has hundreds and hundreds of pictures of Hunter Biden, emails between Hunter Biden and his father, among others. So that wouldn't it would cause just a common sense individual like myself to pause and say, hey, this is likely Hunter Biden's laptop. Like, what did they all believe? That this was a Russia AI generated deep fake that was full of pictures of Hunter Biden? I mean, it defies reality to think that they just signed on and truly believe this was disinformation.
So when the girl has his kid, when the woman who used to be a stripper has his kid, she's now 4. Her name is Navy Joan. He goes, I don't really remember. I don't remember if. And then when asked about,
What
is that your
the
laptop
hell?
on a book tour? He has a book tour. Knowing he goes, I don't really remember. It's my laptop. Don't remember. He's almost taunting us.
Yeah.
He's taunting us with, you can't touch me. So why are you even trying?
Who doesn't remember conceiving a child? I mean, it's
Right.
really something. And
And he gets away with this.
and he's forced to take a paternity test. And it turns out that, yes,
It's his kid.
Yes, it is his child, that poor 4-year-old girl. But that case, I mean, really interesting. There's been so many redactions of Hunter Biden's financial records. And if this judge can force transparency and wipe away some of the redactions, who knows the connection that it may have to the broader interest in Hunter Biden's business dealings.
Kaylee McEnany, our guest. Kaylee, did you have this story about the whistleblower coming forward about possibly the president using business, having his businesses affect policy? Was that on for Outnumbered? Was that out?
How could
Yes,
they
so
say
it was not on
things
for Outnumbered
against the
yesterday. We
damn
are doing it
president?
today. It broke, I think, later in the day, and the New York
Amazing.
Post had some additional details. But it's something,
Really
I pause
amazes
here
me. How
because
come this ain't
the
working?
allegation is so stunning that there's this document that outlines a
Hello?
direct connection between Joe Biden delivering a policy
fuck?
decision in exchange for cash. I don't know why it would be outlined in a public document. The document, the FD, I forget the numbers at the end, but it's an FBI document that when you receive confidential information, it's a way to memorialize that information in an official form. So, it's easy to be hyped up about it now, but until I see the document, I'm kind of hesitant. I hope it's not being overblown.
Right. But the one thing that gives you credibility is Senator Grassley. I want people to
Yes.
hear. I mean, here he is, cut one.
We have
Is this thing working? There it goes. Okay, I see it.
credible information that this possible criminal activity took place. And I can't verify whether or not it's really criminal activity, but I do have faith in the whistleblowers that bring it to me that this document exists. We have a rough idea of what's in the
They
document.
brought me the document,
and,
but I'm not
I
sure
just
if it
wanna
really
do
exists.
what congressional oversight
Doesn't really make much sense to me.
responsibilities I have.
What the hell do I
to
know?
see what the FBI's and the DOJ's done to follow up on it.
See, I don't know why people are doubting that the FBI will give up this document because the FBI has to, I thought, but they say they're not going to.
Right. And Grassley said his biggest fear is that an otherwise unclassified document might all of a sudden become classified. Look, I've said this before.
Doesn't that say a lot?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden you classify a document, what are you keeping from me?
It says a lot. I mean, when people talk about the deep state, it's easy to think that this is like something that is, a dark conspiracy theory in the corners of the internet. But we began this segment talking about the 51 intel officials who hook, line, and sinker bought into a fake narrative and essentially swung an election. That's the deep state at work. So these same intel guys, the top echelons of the FBI,
How
I
can
don't know
they
their
say
political
such
viewpoints. I know
things?
they've
That
made really bad decisions before that always seem to go in one
just
direction. So
baffles me.
I'm not confident we'll see the light of day with this document. But Grassley's confident in this whistleblower. And I would just note an extra layer of credibility
Right.
here. This whistleblower is distinct from the IRS whistleblower who's alleging that there has been certain favoritism in the Biden investigations.
So, Kaylee, you have a new book out. It's called Serenity in the Storm, fresh off your bestseller. So you must have been writing this through your pregnancy and through the birth, your second child.
That's right. It was really special. I was pregnant the entire time I wrote this book. The Dobbs decision came down. It was an incredible journey through my pregnancy, living the life issue quite literally, and then watching the monumental change at the court. So I wrote about all of these cultural issues and issues like Afghanistan and Ukraine. And the broader theme is there's chaos in our country and our world. And I think faith can bring us above the real divisions that we have and some of the problems.
Why
we
do you
have in
think
the
so?
country. I think when you look at the fact that 1 in 3 young girls are considering suicide, according to the CDC, the ills on social media, the violence in our schools, it's all an outgrowth of a generation and an American people that have decided to leave behind faith in God, patriotism, tradition, all values that made our country great. And when you set those aside, it's no wonder there's this real misery, almost depression setting in among
Feeling lonely and looking for a significant someone, but dating sites don't work for you? Tired of scrolling?
younger generation because they look to self rather than the creator of self.
Right. And what happened is if you don't have a main objective, for example, I imagine there would be less depression when you live your life in order to go shoot your own meal, to go find out, get shelter. Your focus is on survival.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're caught in a fire or a flood, your survival. I got to go get a hotel. I got to get clothes. I got to go talk to family. You don't really worry. You have an objective and a goal. I think a lot of people are like, my job's okay. Family's all right. I'm still waiting to meet somebody. And they think to themselves, what's the mission? I don't think my country's that special. In fact, I hear it every day. It's not. What is the mission? I don't think I can be the next Elon Musk. So what difference does it really make? There's a lot of people who are rudderless
and underappreciate the freedoms we have that are embedded in our country. I looked and the church is growing fastest in Afghanistan, Iran, China, Syria, all of these places.
What
and I got
church
to talk to
in Iran?
The Christianity.
Really?
Oh, yes. Iran is, I believe, the number 1 or number 2 place where Christianity is growing. No. And that's the thing. Apostasy is punishable by death. But I talked to Pastor X. He's a leader in the underground church there. In the last, I believe it's 10 years combined, more converts have been seen than in the last 13 centuries combined. So people see, and I talked to a woman whose testimony is amazing. In Taliban-led Afghanistan, we had to talk via Zoom. I had to call her by a different name. And she said, people recognize light and darkness. They saw the American soldiers. They associated them with freedom and with faith. And they see the darkness that's come on their country in Iran and Afghanistan. And they are so receptive to the message of truth.
See, that's the one thing that really hurts more than anything else the way we left Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
People go, well, the country's chaos. They're not used to democracy. Okay, fine. You know what they did? In Kabul, in these different areas, they got the sense of what it was like to put girls in school, to give them a sense of mission, to give a sense of freedom, have a good day and a bad day, and not be afraid they're going to be arrested when possible. Our presence there gave them a 20-year window to what their life could be.
Yeah.
And we didn't want anything in return. We didn't even take the rare earth, even though it's every Democrat's goal to make everything green. The rare earth is the engine behind this going to make everything green. Look at Iraq. We're in, we left. We just tried to show you what representative government's like. We didn't take anything, even though President Trump wanted to take the oil until we're paid off. And I understand that school of thought. He's like, can we just get a percentage of the oil after all what we've already given the country? But we didn't. We just left. And when we're done, when the dust settles, you could get mad. And then you say, wait a second. They did exactly what they said they were going to do. Mm-hmm. We showed you how. We ran your elections. We pulled out. And what it is not, you don't have to copy us. But if every human's goal is to be free to find out what you can be in your life, this is the only government that's going to let that happen.
Yet 2,448 service members is what we lost in Afghanistan, and their sacrifice was not in vain. The way we left was dishonorable. It was horrible.
And not worthy of the people that fought there.
Not worthy of the people that fought there. Joe Biden had ample warning from the intel community, ample warning from the generals that this would collapse, and yet he did it anyway because he wanted a photo op on September 11th and a headline saying, out of America's longest war, and it was a tragedy.
How do you feel when he says the Trump administration left me no choice?
False. False. I've talked to several of my former colleagues. They said that there would be a small stay behind force of special ops guys taking all the equipment out, not pulling the military out before the civilians. There was a plan,
Conditions based.
conditions-based withdrawal, that was thrown into the trash can by Joe Biden, who wanted a photo op. But the sacrifice of those soldiers, it was not in vain. Because I can tell you, a lot of the people there now recognize the difference between light and darkness, and I do think it's changed many lives in Afghanistan.
For somebody who's always so upbeat and positive, you've had a lot of turmoil. That job as press secretary was unbelievably combative.
It was.
And then when you were at CNN, every time you were on, there was a brawl,
Yeah.
right? They did not want to hear what you had to say.
That was almost worse because at least at the podium, I had a microphone that was loud and I could, rise above the noise. But at CNN, you had like 8 microphones of leftists screaming at you and you could get like 5 words in edgewise. So how do you convey a message in 5 words? That was the challenge at CNN.
So now you have a situation where the president of the United States is going to go on CNN for a town hall. And now if this was 2015, it would be interesting.
Yeah.
But from 2015, 2016 to 2021, they don't let him finish a sentence. They call
Exactly.
everything a lie. They set up and make sure that all these so-called town hallers hate him. Do you think this is going to be different for him?
I don't think it will be fair. I don't trust CNN, to your point, stacking town halls, stacking audiences. They have an agenda.
You can't afford to lose him.
They can't afford to lose him. And look, the president,
the
good for him
hell?
for saying like,
No!
look, I want to put my message out there as broadly as I can, reach communities that might not otherwise hear my message. Yes, but I just worry this will be a setup. Past is prologue, right? And the past of CNN and their treatment of Republican candidates has not been particularly fair or, just in any way.
In any way. Unless you're a Republican that wants to criticize Trump, you're not going to
Correct.
get any time.
Larry
on that
Hogan
channel.
could get a fair town hall there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So can Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney
Yes.
could do 6 hours.
Yes.
Absolutely. And for you in particular, I've got to find this intramural battle between Republicans fascinating. Do you look for DeSantis to get in and close that gap? What do you think is going to
The
happen?
gap's going to close. I'm confident of that. Just anecdotally going around the country, I've been everywhere. I've been in so many states in the last 2.5 years. There are a lot of people who recognize Florida as the model for freedom. So he's going to get in. I do think the gaps will close. I do think, and I could be wrong here, President Trump does show up at the debate. And I think everything's going to depend on that Fox News debate and the debates thereafter. That's where we'll see real movement in the polls because it takes big events to really shake up the polls. The Trump indictment certainly did. DeSantis entering the race, I
Don't
think will.
forget
And then
your
those debate
vote
moments.
counts.
And then it's a state by state race.
Right.
National polling is quite literally meaningless. It's Iowa, it's New Hampshire, it's South Carolina, as you know.
And I've always liked Nikki Haley, and there's very few people
Yet
in the world I respect
all
more
the
than Tim Scott.
presidents
Yeah.
related.
And Mike Pence
Agreed.
is a quality human being
Yes.
with great
Allegedly.
experience. So I think it's going to be quality on the stage. I think it's worthy of America. I don't know what's happening on the left because they're refusing to challenge somebody that clearly needs to be challenged.
Yeah, and look, I know Fox News will give a fair debate. I'm certain of that. They did in 2016. I do hope the RNC and Ronna McDaniel are looking very closely at which outlets they will allow subject the candidates to questions because a CNN debate, their one goal will be mudslinging.
CNBC was not much better.
Nope, not much better.
Kayla, congratulations on the book. It's so important. It's out there. Serenity in the Dream, Living Through the Chaos by Leaning on Christ. Congratulations, Kaylee.
Thank you so much, Brian.
See you on Outnumbered in a few
All
hours.
right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor.
All right. Well, I'm welcoming everybody to the broadcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day and a better tomorrow. Maybe we'll find another video here real quick. All right. We found a video here real quick. It's kind of off topic, but it sounds like it might be a good one. The title of the video is called The Shocking Truth About Prepping in Urban Areas. And this video is brought to you by Local Prepper. Please like, subscribe, and share to his channel. Tell them Larry James 965 sent you. And this video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes only. Thank you.
So if you caught my last video on the 7 things that'll happen during an SHTF scenario, I'll leave a link somewhere. You'll start to notice a theme. We don't think enough about our environment, and we need to think more in order to survive in it. Now, last year, I was actually on TV. Believe it or not, I was on an HBO show.
Do you think white and black people are in an abusive relationship? Yes. I look at white men a lot. They're sad. They feel isolated, and they're spiraling from the insurrection to those milk chugging videos. I'm like, bruh. As 4 white men sitting here, it seems like you're a bit pissed off about everything.
Yep, I'm going to be on HBO.
I guess I'm just wondering, what do you guys honestly truly think the deal is?
That's a hell of a question. Anyway, while I was in New York City, I learned that I didn't know squat about surviving in that environment. I instantly started thinking of ways to escape because it was clear that most of these people were going to die if things went full SHTF. I made a video about that too. I'll leave a link somewhere if you're interested. So in this video, I want to talk about the 4 things you should consider if you want to survive an SHTF scenario while living in the city. Then I want to talk about bugging in the city versus bugging out. But before we do that, please remember to like and subscribe so that you'll get notified when my videos drop or I go live. Okay, let's get into it.
Do what he said.
So the first thing I want to talk about is food. Now, outside cities, most states have a robust agricultural scene going on. Inside the city, however, the food will have to be brought in. Since cities produce none of their own food, this means that you must be able to produce, procure, and store your own food. In a prolonged situation where normal society is fundamentally broken, doing this will be crucial to your survival. The 72-hour rule, where it's believed that stores have 72 hours or 3 days of food on the shelves, doesn't work in this environment because the population density is so high. Additionally, you'll want to do it in a way that you can hide your food or supplies effectively. The likelihood that this can happen in your city apartment is virtually zero. You will need to have a good bug out plan. Next is water. Water is easily procured anywhere outside of the city as long as you're prepared to capture and purify it. Having rain barrels, tarps, or access to runoff will sustain you for a long period of time if you do it right. However, a city gets its water from the watershed and reservoirs. The water is piped into the city to serve its residents. If there's a societal breakdown, much of the key infrastructure will no longer be supplying fresh water to that tap in your sink. That means water will become a high-priced commodity inside the city, and those that can't afford it will be pouring out of the city in search of it. So you should expect chaos. At some point, we're going to have to talk about personal defense. And some cities have some of the most strict and confusing gun laws in the country. You may not be able to legally defend yourself or others with a firearm. Certain firearms and the ability to carry them are allowed in some cities, of course not blue ones, but you may have to go through a more robust screening process and face more limitations than what preppers in other states might. The prospect of being almost defenseless will have to be recognized and planned for. Of course, we have to talk about population. Most states have a major city located within their borders, and they have to contend with potential disaster happening in that metroplex. Large cities are, on a whole, other level of concern. For example, the population of New York is 19 million people, and the population of New York City is it's basically like 8.8 million people, and they're all living inside what they call the metroplex. If a disaster struck, the rest of the state couldn't support the residents of the city as they fled inland. It's just not possible for them to do it.
No
This could be a huge
way.
concern for any prepper within a few hundred miles of that city. Okay, so now that we've talked about those 4 major concerns, let's talk a little bit about strategies. I implied earlier that you should have a bug out plan, and I stand by that statement. When I was in New York City, that was all I thought about because I had no support system in place to bug in. Now, there will be those that call the city their home and won't want to leave it. So here's some ideas for making things safer for you before you have to bug out. And you will have to bug out. When we talk about bugging in, storage is going to be key. If you find yourself in upstate New York during the winter or in New York City when SHTF happens, there's likely going to be a severe interruption in supplies. Food, water, medical items, and even heat will be very quickly scarce. Therefore, having a 90-day supply of everything you need to survive is definitely crucial. This is incredibly vital if you find yourself living in the city. You must keep a robust supply of food and water so that way you and your family can weather the storm. Also, make sure you don't advertise that you have supplies. You know, some of the less reputable city dwellers will try and take them from you during a crisis. Next, you should definitely know your neighbors. If you're going to bug in during an SHTF scenario in the city, one of the best things you can do is to know your neighbors. This will allow you to take a potential liability and turn it into an asset. Knowing your neighbors can enhance your security and collaboration as you seek to survive after SHTF. This will further aid you in discerning who is supposed to be in your neighborhood and who's up to no good. If you haven't thought about them yet and you got the money, window bars. They're very common in other parts of the world. They're cheap, easy to enhance your home and security, both now and for when the SHTF comes. Keeping bars over the windows will present thieves and looters with an extra level of challenge that they'll definitely shy away from. Now, why? When considering bugging in, your home literally becomes a fortress. Okay, so now let's talk about bugging out. Now, at the minimum, I'm not going to make this a bug out video, but at the minimum, you have to have a basic plan. This should include a good map with a planned route that has been reconned and thoroughly thought out. And you must have an identified bug out location. Grandma's house.
Welcome back to the broadcast,
Just have a spot.
or welcome
let's
to
talk
the
about the bug out
broadcast, whichever it may be.
We're rarely thinking about it, but water can be your friend. Most cities have rivers and creeks. When considering to bug out, think through how you can use the city's hydrology to your advantage. Some cities have rivers that run inland. There are even substantial water features like the Mississippi River that could be used. The ocean can also be used as a very effective escape route and a possible source of food. The Great Lakes have been used as a trade route, and food sources for centuries. You might want to consider a boat, a pack raft, or other means of navigation on these waterways. You might want to consider the subway. While most cities have a massive population of above ground, there's practically no one below ground in the miles of subway tunnels below the cities. If you find yourself in the city when SHTF happens, the subway will likely stop working immediately. While you won't be able to conveniently ride your way into the suburbs, you can still use the tunnel to get out of town. For example, New York City subways end in Queens and the Bronx, but it will allow you to bypass much of the crowded inner city during times of trouble. The danger here is that others might be thinking the same thing, and you're going to need light. And finally, steer clear of crowds. A city's greatest threat during a disaster is its own population. While the city is able to accomplish great things during good times, when they go without food and water and medical care and law enforcement, the residents of a city could be very dangerous. Given that most cities have a high rate of crime, it's not going to be any better during an SHTF situation. And you're likely to see a rise in violent crime as the criminals seek to consolidate power. The best thing for someone bugging out to do is to avoid the crowd by taking the ocean or heading out of town quickly. But in the end, you better have a plan. All right. I hope I gave you some helpful information to think about. And if you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button for me. Also,
hit
if
that
you'd like
like,
to support the channel,
subscribe,
I'll
and
leave a
share
few links
button,
below
damn
for
it.
you to check out. If there are any bloopers, they'll be at the very end of the video. And as usual, stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you when I see you.
That's cool.
Bye-bye.
No bloopers. That's hoping to see some bloopers. Oh wait, here we go.
there are even some there are even some there are even some there are even some.
That was cool. I like that. All right. Are we going to quit or are we going to keep going? Come on, people. Interject here. What's your thoughts? What's on your mind? What's your opinions? Good, bad, indifferent? Let them be known. Damn it. All right. I got a little short here I've just found. Sounds like it might be kind of funny. I can't really see what it's something about meth takeover is the title of the video. Please like, subscribe, and share.
She running from the police? I don't know. I think she is. Her cars or something. Running from the police.
I was just gonna ask you what happened to your truck.
Oh, what you mean?
Still ain't told me.
Nothing. And run. She tweaked out.
Oh shit! She just dropped her fucking bag, and she's running with her hands up, and he walks away. Oh my god!
That's that fucking meth.
Anyway, hey.
Is she running from the police?
That was pretty good.
I think she is.
All right. Well, it looks like we're going to go ahead and end this broadcast. Everybody have a great day and a better tomorrow. And don't forget the tagline. Got to get our tagline. We're messing this shit up here, damn it. Here we go. All right. Here's the tagline. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. No doubt about it. All right. Well, everybody have a great day and a better tomorrow. And we'll be here tomorrow, same time, same bat channel. Hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.